Alrighty guys, so here we have our first sheet. Now this is where you're going to be doing all of your Tableau magic in terms of creating your visuals as well as combining them into dashboards and making a beautiful visual for your stakeholders at work, or maybe you have some personal data that you want to analyze for your own usage. So in today's video, what we're going to be doing is going over this sheet in a brief overview. We're not going to get too detailed in this session because I want to go and drill down into each one of these particular aspects of this worksheet design view so that we can address them in full detail. I just want to make sure, guys, I'd rather give you more info than less, so we're going to keep a broad overview of this video just so that later on we can give each one of these sections within this page that you see here their each individual, undivided attention. So that being said, let's get started here. So the first thing you're going to see is that you have a design view, and this is where we're actually going to be creating all of our visuals. And we can see some fields. It says drop field here, drop field here, drop field here. And the way that Tableau works is it's very intuitive in its design, right? Tableau is meant to be quickly used, and there's something in Tableau called the flow, which you must maintain while you're analyzing your data. And they've designed this simplistic view on purpose because they want you to spend more time thinking about the way you want your data to be seen rather than how to interact with Tableau. So as you don't know Tableau now, you'll have to obviously learn the tool, but as you go forward, you'll learn how exactly intuitive and seamless the design really is. So what we have here is our design sheet view, and this is where we're going to be building our visualizations. But on the left, we see here is we see a pane. And there are actually two different panes, each with their own scrolling. And what this is here, this is the data pane, guys. All right, so what we're seeing right here is our data source, the New York room rentals listing. Now that name sounds familiar because that is the Excel CSV file that we brought in earlier, remember? And all these dimensions and measures, these are just the names of the fields that we had within our CSV. Amenities, bed type, calendar updated, availability 30, bedrooms, bathrooms. These are all fields within that CSV. And each one of these fields contains data behind them. So let's just take an example of how simple this drag and drop feature. Just drag city into our visual. We can drop it right here in this area. We can see that Tableau has already generated a latitude and longitude field for us, these fields, and we can see it already created a map view for us. And it's really that simple, guys. You literally drag a field into the view and Tableau does all the work for you. Now if you wanted to get detailed or design it or customize the way your data is seen, that's where the rest of Tableau comes into play. So that is how Tableau functions. You have a drag and drop from the left hand side for your dimensions and your measures, and you drag them into the view and drop them. The other way you can do it is you can use something called the marks card as well as the columns and the rows. And as you can see, Tableau actually made use of these things just by us taking city and dropping it into the view. We did not touch columns or rows or have city on this little mark here. Why are these things showing here, right? It's because Tableau will help us along the way in doing most of the work for us if it can help it. So that being said, that's the design language that Tableau uses to basically create our views. And you'll see that a combination of marks, filtering, pages, columns, and rows, and this view here is how you come up with your visuals. So guys, let's go ahead and take these things out. The way you can do that is just drag the pill and drag it into anywhere. You'll see next to my mouse there's a red X. Just drag it anywhere off the screen where you see a red X. So you could drag it up here even, you could drag it down here, you could drag it back here. If you drag it into here, you'll actually show a different type of a view. So depending on the combination of how you drag things, it'll behave accordingly. So the way that Tableau is designed, it uses columns and rows to build the visuals, right? So if you drag a field onto columns and then you drag another field onto rows, it will visualize or display that data in a certain type of way. Now I'm keeping this vague on purpose because I want to drill into these things later on in the sessions, but right now we're going to keep a broad overview. The marks here, the marks card, that's what this is called, it's the marks card. It has the different types of attributes that you can apply to the data that is within your visualization. So if we wanted to see something on color, or we wanted to change the size of something, or we wanted something to show up as a text, we can literally take this and that city field that we previously dropped here and created longitude and latitude, if we just drop that on text, we could see we now have text instead of a visual, and there are no longitude or latitude generated. So a different combination of where you drag and drop things will behave differently in your visualizations. So here we can just see that we dropped in the city, and we could see that we now have the different city values that are within the city field in our data source. So if we look at, for example, the city field within the CSV, we will have a list of all these different cities, and that's what we're seeing here, guys, but it's presented in a visual manner because Tableau is a visual design tool after all. So just the way that you dragged it into text, you could drag it into a bunch of other things. Like if we dragged it to color, it now gave us color representations of all of the different cities that are possible values. Now we can see that this word city is popping up and it's changing as we drag along. That is what we call a tooltip in Tableau, and that's also right here in the tooltip. It's one of the design marks. If you drag something into Tableau and you don't necessarily have a visual representation of it, or you do have a visual representation of it, Tableau will automatically assign a tooltip that helps you discover your data and assign a description for ease of use. But that is how tooltips work, guys. All right, further on, you have details. You also have the marks here, which you can assign to different types of views. So we have an automatic mark here, which lets Tableau decide what type of mark is best suited for this type of a field. Since we chose automatic, Tableau chose this colorful square design. If we were to select a different view, like a text, we could see that it's now on text, and it's just showing random ABCs because we're seeing the city field is actually on color, so the color is the representation. Whereas if you choose a text mark, since it's on a color representation, it's not going to show it as a text because it's already being used as a color. If we were to take city off of here and get rid of it, and we were to take city again and drop it onto text, we will now see again we have all of those fields once again. Whereas before in color, it was just represented a different way, but since our marks are on text, we are seeing it visually as a text. But the actual color is what's driving the actual visualization. Up above here, we have a file tab, right? On our top tab here, we have file where you can open, close, save your Tableau public or desktop files. In data, you can control your data sources. We'll get into that in a little bit. We have your worksheet, which is where you are now. This is where you can control the different attributes of your worksheet, such as show title, caption, summary cards, things like that. And dashboard, where you can create a new dashboard. And dashboards in Tableau are combinations of sheets, and that's how they work. So you build out your sheet and then you drag those sheets into a dashboard, and we'll get all into this stuff. It's really, really cool. Don't worry if you don't understand what I'm talking about now, because remember, this is just a broad overview, right? Next, we have a story, which is a combination of dashboards and worksheets used to create kind of a flow that you use to explain what you're trying to show your viewers. Next over, we have our analysis tab. You can control different types of analysis options, like you can assign totals, percentages, trend lines, special values, legends, as well as filters, and we'll cover a lot of these things later on in the course. Maps, these are for when we design that map that we saw in city. If we were to take that city and just drop it into our field, we would get some options. So let's take our city, pull it off of the marks card, and drag it into our visualization just like this, and Tableau will automatically see that since it's a geo type of a field, it has the globe next to it, it will create a map for us. And since the city is on the text marks card, we can see it's just this weird like ABC, and that's why it's showing that, because we are controlling this with the marks. So if we took this off, we now have the latitude and longitude, and if we drop the city into text, for example, we can now see that we are looking at all of these different cities and these names in this area. All right, so if we were to zoom in, you will see that we are beginning to control the way that Tableau works. So if we were to zoom in into Far Rockaway, we could see that's the area. And if we were to click on this again and to use the second one to the right, we can actually drag and move along to see all the different cities that are in the area. So these are just broad examples. Again, we'll go into this in much more detail, but that's how the design language of Tableau works, guys. All right, so you can use maps for these options, or for when we're dealing with maps. All right, the format here is what's used for when you want to format the way that your visualization looks. So you can format the fonts, the alignments, the shadings, the borders of your dashboards or worksheets, animations, and you know, titles and captions, annotations, legends, filters, and so forth. And then later on here, the windows right here are just the different types of views, as well as what you would like to see. And the help is where you can go online to get some help for Tableau. And that's basically it, guys. That's what we have in terms of the main view of Tableau and how everything comes together. In the next coming sessions, we're going to deep dive into each one of these things as far as what dimensions are and measures and marks and filters and pages, as well as columns and rows, and further details along what we see up here and how we can better use this to our advantage when we're designing our workbooks. Alright guys, that being said, I'm going to end this session. This was just a broad overview of what we're looking at in Tableau. There is one more function here, which is the show me, and that's something I would like to show you in its own session because that is absolutely amazing, just like the rest of Tableau. But this one here should not be within the overview because I feel like that's a much more detailed concept. So we'll get that in the next coming sessions. And guys, thank you so much for watching this. I hope this really helped out in your understanding of Tableau, and I will see you in the following sessions. Thank you and happy analyzing.